Well, in 2020, the U.S. Department of Defense launched a $16 million program to devise a next-generation electronic wound healing system for major traumatic wounds. So this is definitely a thing. It's been studied for over 100 years. But how does generic grounding of the surface potential of the body relate to any of this?
The Rational View is a weekly series hosted by me, Dr. Alan Scott, providing a rational, evidence-based perspective on important societal issues.
Produced by Soapbox Media.
The world needs evidence-based public policy now more than ever. Making the right decisions should not be partisan politics. Please help spread The Rational View by going to patron.podbean.com/TheRationalView. Together, we can make a better future. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Rational View. I'm your host, Dr. Al Scott. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025. You made it. I'm glad to be able to share this with you. Today, I want to talk about a health fad called earthing or grounding. You've probably heard of it. Is it supported by science or is it snake oil? This calls for the rational view. If you do enjoy the show, I'd love for you to hit me up on patron.podbean.com/TheRationalView. What is grounding? Well, what is the reason that I decided to bring this up? Well, the reason I brought this up is that as a Christmas gift, I received a earthing pillowcase. It's basically a conductive plastic-coated thing that you can wrap around your pillow and plug into your socket to connect you to the ground of your electrical system. This in itself doesn't sound great, but what is it? So I went to the grounding websites, and one of the websites states grounding, also called earthing, is a therapeutic technique that involves doing activities that ground or electrically reconnect you to the earth. This practice relies on earthing science and grounding physics to explain how electrical charges from the earth can have positive effects on your body. So just to be clear, this is physical electrical grounding. So, if you've taken any electrical courses or looked at electrical circuits, the ground wire, the green wire, is connected to a post that's driven into a ground somewhere, and it prevents you from getting shocks or prevents you from getting electrocuted. And this is not referring to the psychological process of grounding your thoughts at all. Those two are completely different things, but I'm sure the proponents don't mind mixing it up a little bit to make you feel good. Another website gushes, the Earth's surface has a virtually limitless supply of mobile electrons that gives the ground, as well as lakes and oceans, a natural negative electric charge. When you touch your body to the ground, it dissipates static electricity and extraneous environmental electrical charges that are on you. At the same time, you receive a charge of energy in the form of free electrons, and your body synchronizes with the natural frequencies of the earth. Oh, you don't get energy from lying on the ground. You get energy from resting. The electrons from the earth are dissipating energy when they flow into you. So that you're not really getting any energy, usable energy from that. So at first, this seems somewhat plausible, but there are a heck of a lot of pseudoscience red flags in all of the advertisements that you see. And I mean, it's not uncommon. It doesn't mean there's nothing to it. It just means that's what sells product. And technically, this is a product-driven fad with, from what I can see from researching it, only a few low-quality studies in small journals, no nature journals that would support a breakthrough, for example, that's got strong evidence behind it. And mainly it's being supported by hundreds of customer endorsements backing it up. You can buy grounding mats, pillowcases, blankets, and these are all purportedly to neutralize the charges on your body And these are, there are real charges that exist on your body, and these can build up to a somewhat significant voltage, but it's not a lot of current that you can source. You're not like a battery. You can make a little spark sometimes with a doorknob after you shuffle your feet across a carpet. And grounding is supposed to reduce inflammation and stress hormones like cortisol. So there's a huge appeal to nature fallacy going on with selling all of these things. Listen to this. For most of human history, people lived in direct connection with the earth. They walked barefoot or wore natural footwear that allowed the earth's stabilizing energy to flow freely through their bodies. Our ancestors stayed naturally grounded, benefiting their overall well-being. So they never walked on insulators, I guess. Today, our modern lifestyle has created a significant disconnection from the earth. We rarely walk barefoot, instead wearing shoes with synthetic soles that block the earth's energy. We live and work in buildings elevated off the ground with synthetic flooring that prevents the natural flow of electrons from reaching us. Oh my God. So the earth's energy somehow flows into you. It's just voltage potential differences. When you're grounded, you have no energy. That's what the meaning of grounded is. There's zero energy. You're at zero potential. It's actually when you're charged up that you have the most energy, and that's how you can make sparks. So grounding actually prevents you from getting the earth's energy. And so going on, this disconnection leaves our bodies deprived of the earth's negative charges, which are essential for balance, and keeps our bodies burdened with an excess of positive charges, contributing to oxidative stress and other imbalances. Well, no, when we're neutralized, we're neutral. We don't have a surplus of negative or positive. Certainly, we have all the negative ions that we need to balance out our body over time. If we become charged up, we'll eventually interact with ions in the air from the sun. Natural ions in the air will eventually neutralize our charge if we build one up and are standing on a synthetic floor. Or we'll touch a doorknob or something else that's grounded and we'll return to zero. So, of course, being outside in nature gives one a feeling of wellness and healthiness. Sunlight also creates vitamin D that our bodies need to stay healthy. The smells and sounds of nature are soothing to us. This has nothing at all to do with whether or not you're slightly charged positively or negatively. The air outside is filled with free hydroxyl radicals from water vapor and ozone that are being broken apart by ultraviolet rays from the sun. So many of these sites provide breathless endorsements of changes in subjective symptoms. And while it's definitely feasible that these products are for some reason really effective, many of these endorsements could be due to post-purchase rationalization bias. After you have purchased an expensive thingamabob, a person is motivated to find benefits that would help them avoid buyer's remorse and avoid embarrassment over a potential waste of money buying snake oil. So I can't take hundreds of breathless endorsements that seriously. It's not a scientific suggestion that these things do anything at all. The placebo effect exists, and I have a whole podcast on it, and I suggest you go take a look at it at some point if you're interested, because it is a very interesting effect. With that being said, there are several scientific papers that have been published in peer-reviewed literature, especially by proponent Dr. James Oshman, who begins his 2015 review paper in the little-known Journal of Inflammation Research with the following introduction. Grounding or earthing refers to direct skin contact with the surface of the earth, such as with bare feet or hands, or with various grounding systems. Subjective reports that walking barefoot on the earth enhances health and provides feelings of well-being can be found in the literature and practices of diverse cultures from around the world. He continues, experience and measurements show that sustained contact with the earth yields sustained benefits. So, okay, mom, apple pie, Nothing substantial. Continuing. Our main hypothesis is that connecting the body to the Earth enables free electrons from the Earth's surface to spread over and into the body where they can have antioxidant effects. We also hypothesize that electrons from the Earth can prevent or resolve so-called silent or smoldering inflammation. So this is it. Electrons are, when you're neutrally charged or slightly negatively charged, are supposed to be a free radical cleanser. And modern living in isolated synthetic floors is what's causing us to be sick. This is so hand-wavy. Antioxidants, like eating vegetables. So he's saying that the effect of this is like eating a carrot. This seems wildly implausible to have the benefits that the proponents claim. We know that free radical-induced macromolecular damage has been studied extensively as a mechanism of stress on the body and aging and breakdown of our organs and aging, and large-scale trials with free radical scavenging antioxidant supplements show very little benefit in humans. There doesn't seem to be a great impact of free radical scavenging as the author claims is the main mechanism for this to work. It's simply not possible to build up and maintain a significant charge imbalance between your body and the rest of the world either. Because everything we interact with contains electrons, and they move back and forth between objects all the time. Sometimes you're positively charged, sometimes you're negatively charged, sometimes you're at zero charge. Your skin can build up a slight charge, and you can make sparks, and that's what it is. If nothing else, the charge on an object just dissipates into the air, as I've said. So, getting back to Dr. Oshman, he claims effects related to inflammation, immune responses, wound healing and prevention, and treatment of chronic inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. Specifically, grounding an organism produces measurable differences in the concentrations of white blood cells, cytokines, and other molecules involved in the inflammatory response. But I have to emphasize this is based on very small studies with low statistical power. And if you go back to the podcast on whether we're fooling ourselves, it's very easy to have a positive result in a small trial, especially if you don't specify what you're actually looking for in advance, because just randomly, some of the things are going to change positively and some of the things are going to change negatively. There's no statistical power until you get into hundreds or thousands of people, or even millions of people being tested in a reproducible double-blind trial. So are these believable, these mechanisms, the purported mechanisms? As a physicist, I at first find it highly unlikely. Scuffing your feet creates a huge charge on you, up to 1,000 volts before you can make a spark with a doorknob. But then you're back to zero. Every time you touch a doorknob, you're back to zero. Most of the time, we're hovering around 0 volts. Maybe when you get into a staticky bed in a cold night, you can make little sparks. So what? So what about all these scientific references that the proponents are trotting out to support earthing as a cure-all? So I looked through the 2015 review paper, and here are some of the results that were claimed. Quote, an experimental injury to muscles known as delayed onset muscle soreness has been used to monitor the immune response under grounded versus ungrounded conditions. Grounding reduces pain and alters the numbers of circulating neutrophils and lymphocytes, and also affects various circulating chemical factors related to inflammation. Grounding reduces or even prevents the cardinal signs of inflammation following injury: redness, heat, swelling, pain, and loss of function. Okay, so this seems like a significant claim. So I went to look up the study on muscle soreness. It followed a grand total of 8 people who were asked to do a particular exercise that caused some slow onset muscle soreness the next couple days. And they were followed for 3 days. Half of them slept on a grounded mattress and half of them didn't. Subjective pain scores showed a significant difference. But they didn't actually show in the graphs that I saw the uncertainty in the result. Blood work showed a few differences that are touted with great enthusiasm by the supporters: white blood cells, cytokines, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't specify, as I say, if you don't specify in advance what you're looking for before you do the experiment, such a small sample would randomly have seemingly significant effects. So, yeah, this isn't really anything other than maybe an investigative study that suggests a method to actually, or something to look at. So they've done the study, now they say, okay, these things happen. Now you go and have a large study to follow this up and verify whether or not the effect goes away if you can, get past the subjective results and make sure that you're double blinding everybody. Another claim from the paper: rapid resolution of painful chronic inflammation was confirmed in 20 case studies using medical infrared imaging. So case studies is like the anecdotes of medicine. There's nothing blind about it. It's people that have had significant changes have come forth and been published. There's no controls, there's no references, there's no science whatsoever. Again, this is something that says, okay, maybe there's something here that we should investigate, or maybe it's just subjective BS. So I tracked down the reference for this claim, and from 2004 through 2005, Dr. William Amalu, licensed chiropractic physician and president of the International Academy of Clinical Thermography, conducted 20 clinical thermography case studies to determine the effect of grounding on inflammation, pain, and circulation in 20 of his patients. So he's taking infrared images of sore spots and after grounding, seeing if the temperature of their skin over those parts goes down to indicate less inflammation. That was the study. And on closer inspection, I took a look at the actual images. And if you go on earthing or grounding studies, you will see these images. And on a significant number of them, the before and after images have different temperature scales. So this is horrible. So, it looks very red in the before images and kind of bluish, just yellow blue in the after images, as though grounding has made a significant difference. But they just changed the scale on the camera. This is the president of the International Academy of Clinical Thermography, and he's published these images with different before and after color scales to try to indicate that these made a difference. He's a chiropractor, so I guess it's not surprising, but maybe I could get him on the show. That would be fun. It was not a blind study either. People knew they were being treated and their subjective responses were being collected. There was no baseline, no control, such as an ungrounded mat, to see if there was a placebo effect skewing the results. Oh, don't get me started. So the next reference was an 8-week study of 12 people who were having difficulty sleeping. Again, a very small number of people in this study and not blinded. These were self-selected people that were sore and are willing to reach out to join a study. So, of course, some of them got better over the time of the study. Does that mean that it was the mat? Or does it just mean that, they were really bad and typically you revert to the norm over time if you're really bad enough to reach out for a study? So what do we make about all these breathless endorsements? As I've said before, buyer's remorse and verification bias, these things are very likely to be affecting people's impacts. Appeal to nature, I'm getting natural electrons rather than artificial electrons. People gushing about having the best night's sleep of their lives with, having chronic pain. Well, my chronic pain disappeared. I am pain-free. I can do things I wasn't able to do before. All of these things are the most easily affected by the placebo effect. So could there be any grain of truth at all to grounding and earthing as a benefit? Is there some working hypothesis that suggests grounding can help your body? Is there a physically meaningful thing that might be happening. The electron density stuff and free radical stuff makes absolutely no sense physically or chemically. Is there a better hypothesis that might explain what is happening? So I did a little Googling and okay, what do we know about electromagnetic fields and health? And I found some very interesting stuff that I'd love to share with you. This isn't typically a reference, but I found that electrostatic potentials, so this is the difference in charge between two objects, creates an electromagnetic field, an electrostatic potential, a voltage, as you would, between them, are known to be used by the body to direct cells to wound sites as part of the natural healing process. And if electrical potentials are in one direction, the cell in the normal direction that cells signal, then epithelial skin cells migrate towards the wound. If you reverse the electrical potentials artificially, the skin cells migrate away from the wound. So here's an actual effect of wound healing on electromagnetic charges on the body, or fields. So I found that many types of cells respond to electric fields via directional cell migration. And this is called galvanotaxis or electrotaxis. So skin cells are electrotactic, which means they migrate in electric fields towards the negative, I believe. In fact, while researching this topic, I found a study from 2001 where a researcher performed a randomized control study on the impacts of pulsed electric current on diabetic foot ulcer healing. So you've got a wound in your foot and you're pulsing current into it, and they showed that pulsing currents into the wounds increased the healing rates. And there are other studies that showed that putting an electrode in the middle of the wound and then creating a negative potential there can double or triple the healing rate of large wounds. And in fact, in 2024, so very recently, a study was published in Nature Communications, which is a huge, important scientific journal. So this is going to be a very respectable result. A team of chemical, fiber, and polymer material researchers in China has found that the use of internally produced electrically charged sutures can speed up the healing process after surgery in rats. Prior research has shown that the application of electricity to wounds can speed up healing. It attracts fibroblasts, which are a major part of the healing process. This research team found a way to power sutures using interactions between the sutures and surrounding tissue. So there's these sutures are made of special metal and polymer that can be absorbed into the body, but through normal body movements, they create a charge, like rubbing your hair with a balloon, and attract these wound healing things to the incision site and significantly speed up healing. So that was really interesting. And is it real? Are people spending money on this in real applications? Well, in 2020, the U.S. Department of Defense launched a $16 million program to devise a next generation electronic wound healing system for major traumatic wounds. So this is definitely a thing. It's been studied for over 100 years. But how does generic grounding of the surface potential of the body relate to any of this? Are the hypotheses being offered even cogent? As I've said, probably not. Is there a significant difference in free radical concentration for grounded people? Who knows? They haven't done the studies. Unlikely. Is it better to eat a carrot than sit on a grounding mat? Nobody knows. If there were a significant effect, then electricians and electronics technicians should be a very healthy group, because, they're always have to wear grounding straps while they're doing their work, or they're touching the grounds of electrical circuits all the time. What are the most likely benefits of these grounding products? Well, as part of my work and working alongside electronic manufacturing, I have to take an annual course in electrostatic effects on microelectronics. And the good news is that if you stay grounded, you're much less likely to destroy your portable electronics by touching them. Those shocks that go to the doorknobs, if you put the shocks into the iPhone or into the VCR or into any of your home electronics, there's a possibility that they will just die. So grounding products are required to be used in laboratories and manufacturing by electronics technicians working on sensitive circuits. It's not for their health, but the health of the circuits they're building and testing. So there is a potential benefit if you're, on your phone all the time. If you just sit on your grounding mat beforehand, you're much less likely to kill your phone. Is it dangerous in any way? Well, improper grounding of electrical circuits and then plugging in your pillow to them could result in electrocution. But the product that I was given for Christmas came with a circuit tester, so that they've foreseen this issue and tried to prevent it. So that's nice. What about being grounded in an electrical storm? That sounds dangerous. That's why you're told not to shower during a lightning storm, because the lightning can travel over the wires and through the grounds and up the water and kill you. Lying on a grounded pillow seems like you're making your head into a lightning rod. So I wouldn't recommend that during a lightning storm, unless you have sufficient lightning rods elsewhere above you. However, I did look through the product literature, and apparently they also include a 100 kilo ohm resistor in the cable to reduce the risk, so that you are not the easiest path to ground. So the path to ground is highly resistive. It's not like lying on the earth. It's more like lying on a heavily calloused man who's lying on the earth. So it's not really dangerous. It's not. It will eventually ground you, just like, just like standing still in the sun will eventually ground you. The main dangers of this project are to your self-esteem and your pocketbook. Stay safe out there and enjoy the rest of the year. The Rational View is out.
If you'd like to follow up with more in-depth discussions, please come find us on Facebook at The Rational View and join our discussion group. If you like what you're hearing, please consider visiting my Patreon page at patron.podbean.com/TheRationalView. Thanks for listening.